You've been lied to, and not by some stranger on the street, but by the very culture that's supposed to guide you through love, dating, and attraction. They tell you chasing a high-value woman is the pinnacle of success, that she's some untouchable prize, and if you don't match her standards, you're doomed to loneliness. But here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Chasing a so-called high-value woman is one of the fastest ways to destroy your confidence, your masculinity, and your understanding of real relationships. Think about it. Every blog, every podcast, every TikTok dating coach pushes the same illusion that women are a reward, that they hold all the power, that your life isn't complete unless you snag this perfect, untouchable archetype, and you swallow it. You adjust yourself, your personality, your income, your social presence, all to fit a mold someone else decided is desirable. But here's the psychology they don't teach you. Value is not static, and high value is not a label you earn by fitting someone else's checklist. It's a mindset. It's how you navigate the world, how you control your presence, your boundaries, your emotions. When you chase a woman under the illusion that she defines your worth, you give away your most valuable asset, yourself. And here's the kicker. This system is designed to make you feel desperate. Ever notice how the more you chase, the colder she becomes? That's not rejection. It's biology, psychology, and social dynamics playing against men who have been taught to devalue themselves in pursuit of someone else's approval. You're being trained to seek validation from someone who may never see your real value because she's wrapped in her own narrative of what makes a high-value man. But there's a secret edge most men never discover. True attraction, respect, and connection don't come from chasing a label or conforming to someone else's checklist. They come from owning your life, mastering your emotional world, and developing a presence so magnetic that women, including those high-value women, can't help but take notice. Let's get real. Why do you keep falling for the high-value woman trap, even when it hurts you? It's because your brain has been wired to seek approval, affection, and validation from someone who may never give it freely. You see, chasing her isn't about love. It's about survival instincts gone haywire. Our psychology is hardwired to pursue what seems scarce, and society has labeled these women as scarce, untouchable, almost mythical. That scarcity triggers a deep, primal drive inside you, a chemical pull that makes you think the harder you chase, the more worthy you become. But here's the ugly truth. The chase is a trap. Every text you send, every compliment you overthink, every sacrifice you make is training her and yourself to take your value for granted. She may enjoy the attention, the ego boost, the validation of power over your emotions, but the moment she senses desperation, the connection dies. Not because she's cruel, but because human attraction is built on respect, confidence, and presence, not neediness. Think about your friends, your colleagues, your brothers, who aren't obsessed with high-value women. They walk into rooms with energy, purpose, and self-possession, and the same women notice them effortlessly. Why? Because attraction isn't transactional. It doesn't respond to checklists, Instagram aesthetics, or status symbols. It responds to men who are anchored in themselves, who know who they are, and refuse to give their power away in pursuit of validation. Here's a lesson most men never learn until it's too late. When you define your worth by someone else's approval, you enter a cycle that destroys confidence and breeds resentment. You start questioning your masculinity every time she pulls away, every time she tests your boundaries, every time she disappears for days without explanation. And the more you crave her attention, the less she sees the real you, the strong, unshakable version of yourself that commands respect without begging for it. You don't need a high-value woman to validate your life. You need awareness. You need clarity. You need to understand the subtle psychological currents pulling you into this trap and take control of your own mind before your obsession controls you. Now let's expose the core myth, the idea that a high-value woman is somehow a prize to be won. Society tells you she's a goal, a standard, a measure of your success. But here's the brutal truth. This mindset makes you reactive, not proactive. When you chase someone to prove your worth, every action is filtered through fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. and fear is the opposite of attraction. Psychologically, attraction thrives on confidence, stability, and mystery. It thrives when a man is emotionally anchored, when he knows his value regardless of anyone's attention. The moment you let a woman define your value, you hand over the keys to your emotional state. You're no longer in control, you're a puppet, and she doesn't even need to pull the strings. The more she feels your need, the more you lose power, and the cycle repeats until you're exhausted, confused, and frustrated. Here's the moment most men never see coming. The point where you realize you don't need to chase, impress, or conform to anyone's standards to attract real value. The power dynamic in dating isn't about control in the manipulative sense, it's about self-mastery. When you anchor yourself in purpose, boundaries, and emotional independence, you naturally shift the balance. Suddenly, you're no longer desperate for approval. You're magnetic because you exist fully on your own terms. Most men underestimate this because they confuse attention with attraction. She might respond to your texts, laugh at your jokes, or enjoy your company, but those are surface signals. True attraction, the kind that builds respect and deep connection, comes when you demonstrate that your life doesn't revolve around anyone else. That's not arrogance. It's alignment with your own value. Women can feel it instinctively. They notice energy, presence, and emotional stability more than words, gifts, or effort. This is where the psychology flips. A man obsessed with a high-value woman acts from scarcity. Every interaction is loaded with hidden anxiety. Does she like me? Am I enough? Should I text her again? Scarcity is visible. It broadcasts itself in your tone, your behavior, your energy. Contrast that with abundance, the energy of a man who lives deliberately, who enjoys life fully, who isn't afraid of losing her attention. That energy is irresistible because it signals security, strength, and independence, qualities that can't be faked. Here's the hard truth. No one owes you anything. Not validation, not affection, not loyalty. Once you accept this, you stop chasing illusions and start investing in yourself. You build a presence that draws people to you rather than trying to pull them in. And yes, that includes high-value women. They respond to real men, not labels or societal checklists. The moment you embody that energy, attraction shifts naturally. So how do you start? It begins with small, consistent choices, enforcing your boundaries, pursuing your passions without permission, speaking with authority in your own life, and refusing to sacrifice your self-worth for someone else's perception. This isn't a strategy to manipulate her. It's the only way to reclaim your power and live authentically while navigating modern dating psychology. Now let's expose the core myth, the idea that a high-value woman is somehow a prize to be won. Society tells you she's a goal, a standard, a measure of your success. But here's the brutal truth. This mindset makes you reactive, not proactive. When you chase someone to prove your worth, every action is filtered through fear. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. And fear is the opposite of attraction. Psychologically, attraction thrives on confidence, stability, and mystery. It thrives when a man is emotionally anchored, when he knows his value regardless of anyone's attention. The moment you let a woman define your value, you hand over the keys to your emotional state. You're no longer in control, you're a puppet, and she doesn't even need to pull the strings. The more she feels your need, the more you lose power, and the cycle repeats until you're exhausted, confused, and frustrated. Look closer at the advice pumped into you. Be patient, show value, don't chase, work on yourself until you're worthy. On the surface, it sounds empowering, but here's the hidden danger. It teaches men to delay action, to measure themselves against an impossible standard, and to obsess over someone else's perception of worth. It creates a loop of self-doubt disguised as self-improvement. Meanwhile, real attraction is happening around you. Men who aren't obsessed, men who aren't anxious, men who live boldly, those are the men who effortlessly draw attention and respect. Here's the psychological insight no one tells you. High-value women aren't a special species. They're humans responding to human behavior. They respect men who respect themselves. They're attracted to presence, consistency, and decisiveness, not desperation, not overthinking, not chasing validation. The more you anchor your self-worth in external approval, the further you push them away, even when it feels like you're doing everything right. You need to flip the script. Instead of chasing, start observing. Instead of proving, start asserting. Instead of fearing rejection, cultivate freedom. The men who escape this trap aren't smarter or luckier. They're self-aware. They understand the psychological game and refuse to play by rules designed to make them weak. That's the invisible edge most men never discover until years of wasted effort hit them like a wall. Even after you understand the trap, even after you begin reclaiming your power, most men stumble at the same point: complacency disguised as patience. They think awareness alone is enough. They stop chasing, but they haven't yet learned to command respect or sustain presence. Attraction isn't a one-time switch. It's a continuous dynamic. And the moment you relax too much, too early, the old patterns creep back in. Here's the reality. High-value women, like anyone else, respond to energy, consistency, and emotional clarity. They don't respond to effort alone. A man can be good-looking, wealthy, and talented, but still fail to inspire respect if he hasn't anchored himself in self-worth. You have to cultivate an unshakable inner life, interests, passions, friendships, routines that make you a man who is complete on your own. That completeness radiates subtly but powerfully, creating a pull no chasing could ever generate. Men often sabotage themselves by overinvesting emotionally. They give too much too soon, justify excuses for her behavior, or bend their principles to keep her attention. Every compromise chips away at respect and subtly signals neediness. Psychology doesn't lie. People are drawn to strength, stability, and authenticity, not desperation masquerading as affection. The more you overinvest, the less magnetic you appear. Here's a truth most men resist admitting. Your ultimate leverage in dating isn't manipulation or tactics. It's integrity, presence, and the courage to walk away. When a man cultivates these qualities, he doesn't chase, he attracts. The woman who sees his value naturally gravitates toward him, while those who don't are left behind without conflict. This is the core of emotional power. You control your life, not her attention. The men who succeed aren't perfect. They've failed, burned out, and been rejected, but they've internalized one principle above all else. Nothing external defines their worth. They pursue life, challenge themselves, and build a presence that is magnetic, consistent, and authentic. The high-value woman becomes a participant in their journey, not the measure of it. And when you grasp that fully, the psychological edge you've been missing finally becomes real, palpable, and unstoppable. By now, you should understand something that most men never do. The so-called high-value woman isn't a goal, it's a mirror. She reflects the energy, boundaries, and presence you bring into your own life. When you chase her out of desperation, you expose your insecurities. When you live anchored in self-respect and purpose, you become magnetic without trying, and the right connections follow naturally. This isn't about arrogance, manipulation, or playing games. It's about presence, self-mastery, and clarity. It's about understanding that true attraction flows from your internal value, not external validation. You can't control her choices, her moods, or her interest, but you can control how you live, how you show up, and how fiercely you protect your self-worth. That's the invisible edge most men never discover, and it separates those who flounder from those who thrive. Imagine a life where you're not chasing approval, where your attention is deliberate, your energy is undivided, and your emotional state is independent of anyone else. Imagine women noticing you naturally because your presence radiates strength, consistency, and confidence. That life isn't a fantasy. It's achievable once you stop giving away your power in pursuit of someone else's validation. Every step you take towards self-mastery is a step away from desperation, obsession, and wasted energy. Here's the final truth. The more you chase, the weaker you become. The more you center your life around yourself, your growth, your boundaries, your passions, the stronger and more magnetic you get. It's simple, but it's brutally counterintuitive for a culture obsessed with external labels and high-value checklists.